Welcome to the fourth lecture on culture and conflict resolution. The task for conflict resolution practitioners is to find strategic ways of incorporating the arts into conflict resolution and to create a space where people in conflict can express themselves, heal themselves, and reconcile themselves through the arts. Cultural formations such as music, theater, and painting help societies move from conflict towards peace. In the war-torn Batticaloa district of Sri Lanka, children and adults engage in music, painting, theater, yoga, and sculpture in the Butterfly Peace Garden as a way of recovering from and transcending trauma. In Israel, the Perez Center for Peace brings together Palestinians and Israelis to create joint theater projects to foster dialogue. How do CR practitioners decide what approach is most suitable when using the arts? Lisa Schurz grouped these approaches into 4 categories that focus on specific tasks. For example, waging conflict nonviolently, reducing direct violence, transforming relationships, and building capacity. The figure above shows the cyclical nature of peace-building approaches and the various activities that fall within each category. In conflicts where power is unbalanced and there is little public awareness of the issues, it is often difficult to get conflicting parties to negotiate. In such cases, it may be important to wage conflict non-violently in order to balance power. Artists can raise awareness about latent local issues and conflicts, for example, social injustice, through specific artistic media, escalating the intensity of the conflict so that it cannot be ignored. Art forms that potentially fall within the waging conflict non-violently category can include, but are not limited to, invisible theater, symbolic reinterpretation, spoken word, hip-hop, documentary filmmaking, public murals, installation art, and chants. Mexican murals became famous as a method of addressing social injustices. Mexican muralist José Clemente Orozco and his murals Destruction of the Old Order, The Aristocrats, and The Trench and the Trinity, for example, communicate the social dynamics between the worker, the soldier, and the peasants. Hip-hop music is another excellent example of art's capacity to wage conflict nonviolently. Hip-hop artist Chuck D, for example, from the US-based Public Enemy, is a devout believer in the political power of hip-hop music. Chuck D's lyrics frequently focus on prison reform, funding for schools, ending tax cuts for the wealthy, and anti-war anthems. His music has become a medium for the message, or as Chuck D once quipped, hip-hop is a CNN for the black people. These programs interrupt the cycle of violence and lay the foundation for peace in 3 ways: preventing victimization, restraining offenders, and creating safe space for other approaches. Artists working to reduce direct violence can interrupt the cycle of emotional, spiritual, physical, and/or psychological violence through visual, literary, performance, and/or movement art forms. An example of how South Africa's struggle for freedom from apartheid, formerly exiled soldiers belonging to the African National Congress introduced an innovative and creative form of civilian peacekeeping known as the toyi-toyi. Part dance, part civilian resistance, this powerful rhythmic stomping of booted feet was copied from Zimbabwean freedom fighters and soon became an integral feature of the struggle. The chanting crowd was intimidating to young white soldiers, and it was hard to get the rogue recruits to stand their ground, which in a way prevented direct violence. For peace to replace violence, broken relationships are recreated using an array of processes that address trauma, transform conflict, and do justice. These processes give people opportunities to create long-term, sustainable solutions to address their needs. For example, the Shakespeare Behind Bars prison-based theater program operated by the Kentucky Shakespeare Festival's director, Court Tofteland, is an example of how relationships can be transformed through arts. The inmates of the Luther Lackett Correctional Complex in LaGrange, Kentucky, not only study Shakespeare, they produce and act in full-length first folio productions of Shakespeare's plays, allowing the prisoners to grapple with emotions they would not otherwise be able to confront safely. This approach provided the opportunity for safe encounters with complex issues and encouraged the development of the interpersonal life skills that could contribute to the adult prison population's successful reintegration into society and the effective end to a cycle of violence. Capacity building includes training and education programs, development and transformation. Artists can use visual, literary, performance, and movement art as capacity building mechanisms to build self-confidence, enable self-expression, and provide training in leadership, public speaking, and creative problem solving. Art forms that potentially fall within the building capacity category can include, but are not limited to, forum theater and arts education programs. The Interactive Resource Center (IRC) in Lahore, Pakistan, is one such arts-based organization working to build community capacity within Pakistan through the use of forum theater specifically. The Interactive Resource Center strives to build a consciousness among marginalized sections of society regarding their basic rights, and uses interactive forum theater techniques to facilitate democratic dialogue on social issues like honor killings, bonded labor, and gender equality. When talking about conflict resolution processes in low and high context cultures, artistic tools and strategies have the ability to be successful in both. For example, theater can give the lower context community the opportunity to view and gain perspective on their own conflict objectively through the recreation and reenactment of an isolated specific community conflict. Community members, including both stakeholders in the real conflict and spectators of the staged conflict, are then afforded the opportunity to assess the problem objectively. The higher context community is allowed to save face by witnessing someone else's story, which is in fact their own, performed by a concerned cast of recognizable local actors. Thanks for listening.